In this video, I will show you how we make $240,000 per month with 5 Google Ads campaigns for one of our clients here, in this case in the accessories and fashion space. And in this video, I will show you which campaigns we use, why we use them, sort of the strategy behind each and every campaign, how we got there, what sort of testing we've been doing, and much, much more. So before we get right into it, just one little thing. This is not about, use as few campaigns as possible. You can have 20 campaigns, 30 campaigns, that doesn't matter. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can actually have very few campaigns and still be very successful and scale to 6, maybe even 7 figures, even though our 7-figure clients have more than just 5 campaigns. So with that being said, let's get started and get right into it. I will make myself a little bit smaller. So we've been working with them for about a year, right? And what you see here is the overall dashboard of the active campaigns. And the comparison range that we have here is previous year, okay? So you can see that from last year, our overall account is up 115% in volume and 6% in ROAS. Actually, 10% of sales are missing when we look at the previous month. So we have been comparing last 30 days to the 30 days last year in the same period. So in over the course of November, essentially, which means that ultimately we will look at 16% more ROAS and 125% more value when those late converters are in. What you see now is a broad search campaign, a performance max campaign, a brand search campaign, a shopping campaign, and demand gen. Now I kept brand search open here so that you know that not all, our volume doesn't come from brand, right? We improved our brand value. At the same time, we lost a bunch of brand ROAS, even though it's still super profitable, of course, but the majority of our growth came from cold traffic. And the important thing to note here is that all the other campaigns are using cold traffic only. Of course, every now and then there is like one sale that slips through that is branded, but 98% or so is just cold. And that's very important because whenever I do audits, I see, a bunch of accounts that just get a ton of branded traffic, branded sales, sometimes without them knowing even. And that's of course pretty damaging when you think that you're getting new business, but in the end you're just converting more and more brand traffic users. So that's just for you to know. When we look into the next steps now, we can see, first of all, our Performance Max campaign, right? And that's the inside of our Performance Max campaign, the different asset groups in that campaign. And when we talk about Performance Max here, we have the following structure. We primarily test multiple audiences, interests, etc. in those individual asset groups. So the goal here is to find the perfect combination of, assets, audiences, sometimes even products. Sometimes we advertise all of our products. Sometimes we advertise just a few of them. Sometimes we have a very broad audience. Sometimes we have a small audience. And as you can see here, again, that's the 30-day time frame. We have a ROAS of 5.5, 4.4, 4.3. We need a ROAS of about 3 to be profitable. And again, 10% are still missing. So multiply all the ROAS and sales and conversion figures by 1.1. Okay. So you see here that most of these asset groups are very profitable. Actually, in that time frame, all of them are. This one here is the worst. We had, of course, periods where we hit a 2x ROAS in some asset groups, or even a 1 point something that we then killed and went with new ones afterwards, which is, we cut those losers early if possible, but not too early. So you still want to spend, in my opinion, at least a few $100 on an asset group before you decide that you want to move on with something else. But the point is, you should test something in PMax, okay? So I see this all over the place, that brands have one gigantic PMax, or maybe they have a bunch of them, like 10 PMax campaigns. All of them just use one asset group. The asset group oftentimes uses products only and or just like one audience. What we have here is we have assets, we have products, we have different audiences, in market, custom segments, you name it, affinity. We have pretty much everything, right? And we are constantly checking, all right, what's giving us the best returns. So here you can see these two audiences here, these two asset groups, are the biggest. This one here is getting pretty close. This one here right now is the most profitable for sure, right? But it's kind of difficult to scale. We tried pausing some others and leaving that one run sort of alone. but it doesn't really work that well. So we now, at least for the time being, of course, this is constantly changing. We have that mix of a bunch of asset groups where some are more scalable, some are more profitable. But that's the point. If you have multiple, if you add new asset groups to the mix every now and then, you don't have to do this every other day, then you can really find out what the perfect combination is. Ideally, you regularly add new assets, new headlines, new ideas when it comes to text, etc. And that's how you get the most out of it. So previously we had multiple PMAX campaigns here. When we came on board, we optimized them, we changed them, we adjusted them. Over time, we removed all the other PMAX campaigns so that we only have this big one right here, and all the other tests, search, shopping, the other stuff, we always do isolated in other campaigns instead of having like a whole bunch of PMAX campaigns that are eating into each other's audiences and so on and so forth. Next up, we have our search campaign, right? So this is our search campaign, our cold search campaign. Those are not even all the ad groups. We tested so many things when it comes to search over here. We tested categories, subcategories, keywords that are relevant for that particular brand. We tested whether broad outperforms exact or phrase, which in this case it definitely did. So we ran an experiment. We checked. Previously, they were only running phrase and exact match before we came on board. We tried with broad match, didn't really work from the get-go. So we took the original campaign, ran an experiment, added more negative keywords, because of course broad match requires you to be more on top of your negative keyword game. And ultimately, the campaign just vastly outperformed the original, right? And now, as I said, the search campaign, I didn't say yet, but I'll say this now. The search campaign, the cold traffic search campaign, is performing much better than the shopping campaign, which you don't see that often with e-commerce, right? But in our case, that's just how it is. The cold search performs better. And that's after all that testing. We also ran URL test, whether the homepage outperforms the product page versus the collection page. Normally with search, what you see is that the collection pages tend to perform best. So if you sell black sneakers and you send someone to a collection page with black sneakers and you have 20 black sneakers on there, that website, that landing page tends to perform the best, because on the one hand you are being specific, on the other hand you still give people some options to choose from and you don't force them to buy a certain product. Here it's quite similar. We've tested all kinds of things. There are actually cases where sending them straight to our bestseller, right, like to our best-selling product based on the search query, based on the keyword, works actually better. But the thing is that overall still the typical sort of category landing page works the best, even for this brand right here. But the point is that all the variables in here, the ad copy, how we run the ad copy with pre-qualification. We have tried ad copy where we really focused on click-through rate, right, where we were a bit like sensational. We tried as I said, pre-qualification with pricing, etc. We were very features focused, then we were very benefit focused, then we have a mix. So we had all these iterations, and now we have that search campaign that is actually still pretty scalable. It says limited by budget according to Google. We're doing this kind of step by step, especially now, shortly before Christmas and shortly after Black Friday. But this search campaign just works extremely well. And after PMAX, that's our most important campaign by far. And the beauty about that is that it's much easier to scale next to PMAX, because probably that running PMAX next to shopping is always a little bit tough, because PMAX, just overrides the priority so much. Then next to that search campaign, we have our shopping setup. And for the shopping setup, or for the shopping campaign itself, as I said, it makes less than our cold search campaign, which is not that common. We have a very optimized product feed now. Okay, so when we got started, it wasn't terrible or anything. Actually, most shopping feeds that I see these days, they are at least like okay, right? I don't see crazy mistakes when I look at new accounts, like, oh, there's something that's completely off and you have to completely change that, only 2-word names or so, but they could definitely be improved. So we did that. We added more context. We made sure that all the attributes are in place, that like things like materials, colors, all those things are properly organized and properly set in the titles. Descriptions are not that important. We made sure that we also tested product images, at least for some of the products. So we didn't go in and threw all the images out and got new ones in place. But we tried for some of the products whether an alternative image will do better. And that was the case. So for some of the products, we were able to boost the click-through rate, let's say, I don't remember the numbers right now, but let's say from like 1% CTR to 1.3 or from 0.7 to 1.1, which is very, very impactful, right? Many people think, CTR, CPC doesn't really matter. It's all about the ROAS, and that's true. But of course, if you manage to increase your CTR by 30%, unless your conversion rates really go down as an effect of that, or as a result, then you are essentially scaling by 30% as well. So CTR in the context of shopping especially can be super important. What we do there as well is like, price segmentation. We have a bunch of product price ranges. From somewhat low ticket to like 200 plus pounds, also a bit more than that. We of course tested all kinds of bidding strategies. Right now we are running on a classical target ROAS and it just performs the best. Negative keywords, again, super important. The shopping campaign here is always a little bit sort of turbulent, right? Like there are cases where the PMAX gets all the attention and PMAX and search together make like way more than shopping. And then there are other times, especially 2-week time frames or so, where the shopping really picks a lot of leftovers and gets pretty profitable, 4.5x ROAS or something like that. And that's why we have it in place. Overall, it's performing decently. It's performing okay. Definitely worth keeping, even though PMAX and search for us does all the heavy lifting. But this shopping campaign nonetheless replace the Performance Max campaign. Why? Because there was so much overlap and the shopping campaign is so much easier to handle in this case that we decided, okay, there's one PMAX campaign in particular that we want to sort of remove in favor of that shopping campaign. And as I told you before, we are down from multiple PMAX campaigns to just one at this in this point, right? We definitely want to scale that shopping campaign further. We're also doing that on Bing, which we handle for the client as well, which is not included in the numbers here for Google. But we try to do some more shopping stuff on Bing, while on Google it's not super scalable compared to the others right now. Then next up, we have our demand gen campaign. I'm skipping brand here for now because there's not that much to talk about with the brand campaign, right? So demand gen, we started that a few weeks before Black Friday. It was unprofitable for a pretty long time and still it's not perfect, right? You have to stick to your budget in order to eventually see a decent ROAS. There were at least 3 to 4 times where we discussed whether we should just turn it off, right? Whether it makes sense, because the ROAS was like 1.5, 1.3, 1.8. Not that great, but we kept going. We, tweaked some assets, tried with some audiences. Also, like the products and the landing pages are important tweaking points. And now it is at a point where we are seeing some good results. Like there was a week where we hit like a 4x ROAS or something. Now we're a little bit down again, but we can definitely see an upwards trend, from every single sort of time period, past 7, 14, 30, 45 days. We see that it gets better and better all the time. Because we are making pretty good numbers from all the other campaigns, the client is willing to say, let's just keep trying with demand gen, right? And as long as there is improvement, as long as you keep trying, it's worth it. But as I said, you have to dedicate the budget to it. You cannot just say, let's start demand gen, and after $100 of spend without profitable sales, we stop it, because then it will never work pretty much. We are running a whole bunch of demand gen campaigns across a whole bunch of e-commerce accounts at the moment. It is promising, but yes, you really need to stick to it. It's definitely not easy and it definitely doesn't work from day one. So the tweaking points, as I mentioned, the main tweaking points when you want to improve demand gen over time: the assets, especially the images, but also the texts. The audiences are pretty important, so you can test a bunch. You can, test lookalike audience like we are doing here as well. And of course, the products that you choose and also the landing pages. So you can try homepage, collection page, product page. You can try to use the demand gen for just a single product. If you have an absolute bestseller, it could be worth it to only run demand gen for this one product, tailor all the assets, all the images, etc. to that one product, and then potentially get the best results that way. All right, now there are a few more points about the account in general, right, that I want to share with you here. So we have about 100 campaigns in the entire account. It's not that the account was born with, with 5 campaigns, and we basically stuck to that number all the time, and that's now where we are. We have 100 campaigns overall, some very old ones, but also many campaigns that we tested over time that just didn't work that well, that we just tweaked, that we improved, we iterated, did something else. So 5 right now, and they're just producing the best results. Then also, sometimes working within campaigns is better than adding new ones, all right? So when you want to do something new, the main optimization in Google Ads takes place on the campaign level. Yes, every conversion contributes, like in the account, contributes to optimization, but if you can accumulate more conversions within a campaign, that's better than scattering them across the entire account. So when you can, and when it makes sense, try to test new things and do new things within the campaign rather than by adding a whole bunch of new ones. But of course, again, if it makes sense, then by all means just create new campaigns and do it that way. That's perfectly fine. We cut the PMAX from 3 to 4 down to 1, like 3 to 4 at once. There were more in the account overall, but 3 to 4 PMAX at once. So we now have only 1, but we do ongoing asset group tests, right, to make sure that we are on top of things. We share inputs on conversion rate optimization as well. That's a little sort of bonus service for our clients, where we give them insights like, hey, we spend 1.1 million on Google Ads per month at the moment, so here's what works, here's what's important. This helped us also improve our conversion rate here and there. Yes, this was mainly and primarily a Google Ads effort, but also sort of improving the conversion rate should be something that you should be doing on a constant basis, right? You are never really done with that, and that's pretty important. And then last but not least, we keep pushing our best performing products, but constantly test the others as well. So as with most brands, there are a few hero products. They make most of the volume, at least most of the time. And those are the ones that we are really pushing, but we constantly test all the others. We constantly test categories in search. We constantly test other products in PMAX asset groups or shopping, for example. And that is very important. You want to maximize the search impression share of your bestsellers, and you also want to milk them as much as possible, but you shouldn't rely on them completely, because they might dry out or something might happen, and you want to make sure that at least some of the other products, if you have a bunch of them, get advertised and sold properly as well. So yeah, that's what we're doing with that particular brand. Of course, besides that, we have many others. So that's just one piece, or these are some of the brands of our 6 to 8 figure clients that we work with in all kinds of spaces. Some doing, 50K a month, 100K, 300 roughly, like this one, 240. Over $1 million is something that we do as well. So all kinds of industries, all kinds of niches, and all kinds of products that we are selling. If you say that sounds good to you and you want us to help you grow your sales as well, you can actually check the first link in the description if you like, and we can actually go ahead and handle your ads for you completely. We will scale them with an absolute focus on ROAS and non-brand revenue. That's the important part. Or if you say, nope, I want to do it myself, or I don't have the budget, or I'm not there yet, whatever, you can check the second link in the description, which is my do-it-yourself Google Ads training for e-commerce, the eCom PPC Academy, that also talks about all the topics, PMAX, shopping, search, you name it, for your e-commerce brand. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, please subscribe for more performance marketing and Google Ads content for e-commerce. Let me know in the comments how many campaigns you use and whether you are creating new ones all the time. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I look forward to see you in the next video again, and bye-bye.